Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to call our meeting to order and just remark that we are going to be really spoiled on this council. This is the second or third meeting or fourth meeting in a row that we've had a full gallery, and we really appreciate your presence. It's good to see you. And I'm going to begin by inviting Councillor Forder to read our land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We would like to begin by acknowledging that we are meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which includes the Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation and the Chippewas of Saugeen First Nation. We also recognize the Métis, whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. We extend our gratitude to all Anishinaabe and Métis people and their descendants, past, present, and future, who continue to care for and inhabit these lands and tend these waters.
Thank you. And now I just invite you to join me in a moment of silent reflection on today's business. Thank you. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, just a reminder that you're free to bring it forward at any time it occurs to you. And we'll move on to announcements. Do we have any announcements around the horseshoe today? Deputy Mayor Keaveney.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and good afternoon, everyone. I just want to start by ringing the bell. Just as a reminder of the incredibly fabulous event that happened yesterday at our community center, the kickoff for our sesquicentennial celebrations. And I just want to give a shout out to the organizers, Mary Solomon and Verna Hindle, who just did an incredible job. And for anyone that was present, it was really, really special. And I also wanted to feature, so I'm just going to stand up, the Meaford merchandise. So this is the merch for the sesquicentennial. This logo was designed by Jessica Kenyon. We're really proud of it. There's t-shirts and sweatshirts. The sweatshirts are only $30, and there's green and black and white, and they can be purchased at Meaford Hall and at the Meaford Museum. And the other thing I wanted to mention is the cookbook. So there's also a cookbook in honor of the sesquicentennial, and I thought I would just read, because it's really kind of fun, a couple of inserts. So there's lots of great recipes, but there's also a couple of really fun things in here. So in case anybody wants to make a liver cocktail, you will need liver juice, orange juice, a tablespoon of sherry, and a tablespoon of lemon juice. To make the liver juice, score raw liver, sear lightly in a pan for half a minute, place the liver in a square of several folds of gauze and squeeze out the juice, chill, and mix all the ingredients, if you can imagine. And one more just for fun. And this is a recipe for home brew. So for home brew, chase a bullfrog for 3 miles and gather the hops. To the hops, add 10 gallons of tan bark, a half a pint of shellac, 1 bar of homemade soap. Boil the mixture for 36 hours, then strain through a sock, then bottle. To each pint, add 1 grasshopper to give it a kick. So the cookbook, well worth the purchase at Meaford Museum. Thanks very much.
Councillor Bell.
This is an announcement about your local branch of the Royal Canadian Legion. Branch 32 is hosting what is called a zone convention next Sunday. And in the province of Ontario, there's 4 zones, and we happen to be called Zone C4. And there are 12 branches that are in that zone, and they are going to be having delegates come here on Sunday for the zone convention. And the branches that are involved, it covers quite an area. It's Owen Sound and Meaford and Chesley and Tara and Southampton, Lions Head, Wyerton, Chatsworth, Tobermory, Paisley, Port Elgin, and even some folks from Hepworth who lost their hall to fire a while back, but they're going to be there. So the local branch 32 is to host a convention back in 2014. And most of you folks know that the local branch has been going through a lot of different things and meeting in different locations. But we put our name forward and we are hosting a zone convention this Sunday. And the delegates will be meeting on a variety of subject matter and voting on changes that need to occur within the Royal Canadian Legion. So that's happening for us this Sunday. And we hope you, Mr. Mayor, can bring greetings on behalf of the municipality. And if you didn't know you're doing that, I'm asking you.
Thank you. It'd be my honor. Councillor Yurg, did I see your hand up? No, is it Councillor Greenfield?
Thank you, Your Worship. And I'm hoping maybe Councillor Porter will help me out a little bit on this one. Activities at the Meaford Public Library this week. It's a special week, especially for young people who get a break from their toils at school life. A lot of events going on, primarily for kids, but for big people too. Cartoon drawing, science snippets, bots for tots, children's author. I've likely missed a few. Councillor Porter, can you add anything to that? It's going to be a good week of activity there.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I may add, with your permission, the library does have a number of events that, unfortunately, a lot of them are full. Unfortunate for those that did not register, but great for those that did. But on Friday, there's the We Care concert with Errol Lee, which is going to be fun, interactive music and dancing for kids, and that should be a lot of fun. And there's still some space left for that. And then to add on to that as well, there's also a lot of really great March break activities happening at the Grey Roots Museum. So give their website out a check out and see what they've got going on.
Any other announcements around the horseshoe? Then I'll turn it over to our interim CAO, Matt Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one from me today. I have two new members of staff with us today, Tyler Wilkinson and Evan Van Plu, who have both started in the last couple of weeks as environmental services operators. So we welcome them to our team.
Okay. Welcome, gentlemen. Okay. So then we'll move on to public participation. Members of the public are encouraged to provide council with their comments and questions. Presentations must be prearranged with legislative services before the agenda is released and will be limited to 10 minutes. If a member of the public wishes to make a deputation on items on the council agenda or to ask a public question of council, they may do so either in person at the council chambers or remotely via Zoom on phone or internet. Members of the public wishing to make a deputation or ask a public question must register in advance with legislative services by 10 in the morning on the day of. And you can do that by contacting the deputy clerk at meaford.ca or calling 519-538-1060 extension 1100. An email with access information will be sent to those who register for remote participation. Deputations are limited to 5 minutes and public questions are limited to 2 minutes. And the public is able to watch this meeting live via the Municipality of Meaford's YouTube channel at www.meaford.ca/YouTube. And you may, of course, access those meetings at any time you choose. So we do have some presentations today, and I'm going to call on Joseph Leung, who is going to be speaking on the 4th Canadian Division Training Center lands.
Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Leung, and I live on 108 Georgian Beach Road South. It's really a privilege as citizen be part of a process of completion to seek closure by due process. Every effort would be led in a manner that dignifies our roles as citizens and brings together our community in upholding our constitutional right and founding principle which bind us together. With your permission, Mr. Mayor, I would like to, part of my presentation, ask Miss Elaine MacDonald to read a poem for me.
If
And
you could
this
do
is
it in
going,
10 minutes, you're
this is
on.
going, yeah, this is going to be appropriate for our 150th year anniversary of Meaford.
No, this poem is written by Reverend William Howie, who was the last minister of the Mount Pleasant Methodist Church. Tribute to the pioneers. Ruins are sad remains of hope that once burned bright in hearts aflame, though now they lie a tragic sight, mayhaps not even with a name. I think of all the throbbing life that once lived there of hope, despair, the love and fears of man and wife, and all the things that happened there. Here once throbbed life, red-blooded full. This place was home to folks like me, whose lives were lived in joy and fear, who left their mark for all to see. In those first days, the country ride was covered o'er with forests tall. Comforts and luxuries were few, and weary toil the lot of all. Here toiled the weary day by day, from week to week, from year to year, to clear the forest, till the land, strengthened by hope and driven by fear. Strengthened by hope or driven by fear. Today the pioneers are gone, too oft they sleep without a name, in many an ancient churchyard lie neglected graves without the same. O children of those pioneers, recall the debt you cannot pay, and keep their graves in memory green until you close life's little day. All honor to brave pioneers who laid foundations firm and true. God grant that we may build upon and be worthy of sires like you.
Thank you. This is from History of Schools, St. Vincent Township, 1847, 1967. And this is my bedtime reading. It's on my side in the bedroom. So what I've noticed is that I have letters in here and I have documents in here, and I can share this with you if you want. They mention that cemeteries are neglected. And this is how it's happening. And I have letters in here that people that their families have been buried at the tank range. Once a year, they have permission to go and visit with an escort. And the orchard has been overgrown. The cemeteries are not taken care of. And this is not the way we are. I think we're better than that. So I'm going to mention the second part I want to deal with. I wrote the title myself. It says, Two Stories but Different Outcomes. In 1942, the government of Canada wanted to have two camps for military purposes. So they picked Ipawasht, better known as Cattle Point First Nation, down the line, near Forest, and Meaford Tank Range. So just to give you an example of how big it is, what a difference it is from those two camps. Cattle and Stony Point First Nation, later it became Ipawasht Crisis. It had 3,333 acres. Meaford, according to Mr. Chapman, and I have the report of 2021, it is officially 19,008 acres. That's a big difference. So I did the calculation. Ipawasht, they got $50,000 and it's $15 an acre. In Meaford, 168 families plus, they got between $2 to $60 per acre. In Ipawasht, multiple demands, but the people, they were under the impression, same like in here, nothing is written, that they're going to be having that land back after the war. Similar stories happened in Meaford. And I took this from the book, St. Vincent, Beautiful Land. And I'm going to read you what happened. 1941, the reason I come here because we have amalgamation. Sydenham and St. Vincent, I live in Annan, so it became St. Vincent, Meaford in 2002. So in 1941, Don Cowlin married Curry, daughter of well-known farmer Hector Kiston. The couple settled near the mountain lake. Don recalls vividly the emotional suffering of many families, some of whom have been established on century farms for generations. And I have in here the gathering, this was in the Sun Times, of the people that attended the 60th anniversary of the expropriation. So June 18, 2002, at that anniversary, from the Sun Times, Mr. Don Crosby, a well-known reporter, he was there. Don Cowling, one of three daughters, I don't know if Nancy Primack is here. They had three daughters. Nancy was one of them. And when I heard about this, I was looking for Cowling. And three daughters got married, so they take the name of the husband. So I couldn't find Cowling. I did find Cowling in a phone book 20 years ago. They're from Southampton, distant cousin. And then I found out that Nancy, whom I know the husband, Jerry Primack. So this is how I get to know Nancy. That's a Histon descendant. So he mentioned Don Cowling. Price of properties were arbitrarily, tough tactics by land agent, pressured and threat of coercion. The loss would be temporary, orchard cared for, cemeteries cared for, church, schools allowed to stand awaiting occupancy when the war was over. Now the tank range documents are open to the public and everybody can verify that. So recollection from the memoirs of somebody that I still living that I play cards with, Leora Boyle, née Vale, Billsville aunt. And she lives in Owen Sound. Of fall 1942, after we moved, the Army invited us for a quick visit to show us how they would use the range. They cut rows of seats in the hillside for us to sit. So we all sat and watched the tanks bulldoze the trees. They blew up our homes while mom and dad watched tears just poured down the faces of my parents and my family. Leora lost her grandmother the day they were moving out, and she was the last one to be buried at the tank range. Ken Darling said his father, Captain Lionel Darling, a First World War veteran, came to Canada. He was never the same. He lost interest in everything. Many families sacrifice. The best we can do, I'm asking my council, my mayor, my deputy mayor, members, help the people. They are gone. We have to help them. And I'm here.
Just for the record, you're at your time now, so keep going, but
It's finished?
but I say you've had your 10 minutes.
Okay.
So, but keep going, but just be mindful that we have
Yes,
other
yes, I would,
speakers.
I would do that. So I would like to have two things done. I ask you to work this out, put a closure to that. Twice in the past, I think Mr. Greenfield was involved with that. When the tank was going to be closed, maybe in 1988. And the residents said, what a great idea, turn it into a national park. National Defense Minister said no. And the people that came out of the expropriated land, some of them did okay. Some of them quit completely. They retired. Killside, I know people that I play cards with, 95 years old. He was 14, he was kicked out. Albert McConnell, Leora Boyd, Ann Stewart, Bumstead, McNally. The name goes on. I have a list because we did some work on that research. So what I want you to do, I'm not even touching about TCE for my presentation. 19,008 acres they have. Mayor, I know you talked to the commander. The commander told you he wants to know more about the history of the tank range. Put this forward. Turn 1,000 acres into a sanctuary for birds and wildlife. Canada in 1917 signed a Migratory Birds Convention Act. In 1909, Canada signed a boundary water treaty with the United States. So it is very, very important what happened on the tank range. Any white phosphorus they use for flares, for training, they go up, they come down. When it rains, it washes down, it goes to the mountain lake, and then it gathers and it discharges into our bay. And at the same time, I'm sure you know this, around Georgian Bay Basin, there are municipalities that are concerned about the pollution of the water. 40 million people depend on this water. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Don't go too far away because you're up again soon, but is Taylor Prestige in the audience? Taylor Prestige? Okay, that's a deputation on non-resident sports fees, and she is not here at this time. So I'm going to call Joseph back to the microphone for a 5-minute presentation on the establishment of the Pump Storage Advisory Committee.
Thank you for this opportunity. Last year, about in February 26 or 28, was a Monday, we had a meeting at Meaford Hall. After we voted for 5-2 for this project to negotiate benefits, Deputy Mayor Ms. Kivini came down on the floor and told me, Joseph, as soon as I get in, we're going to have a advisory committee. You did tell me that. And I say, that's very good. It's a step forward. But when I think about this, it's 4 years or 5 years, not too late. It should have been done earlier before we voted to allow this company to come here to roll the red carpet. So what is the mandate for this committee is going to be? It's an advisory. So suppose 9 members, they decide to say, okay, I don't think it's very good, this project. So this is what they voted. And the answer is, we don't want this project here. So it comes to you here. What are you going to do? You have to vote. Are you going to take the advice? It's kind of, I'm going to build a house. I built a house already. Now I'm talking about, do you think we should build a house? Now, in the standing committee report that I gave a copy to the mayor, it says in there, we cannot do the same thing again. This is Todd Smith, the Minister of Energy. He was a member on that committee. We cannot make the same mistake again because last time it cost us $1.1 billion. Us, that means taxpayers of Ontario, because Mr. McGuinty put this on our electricity bill. So what's going to happen with this one? I know we've been working on this. I say we because I belong, you belong to me, I belong to you. We are all together. You spend so much money, so much staff time, so much volunteer time, and we spend money, right? The minister said in here last year, 2023, not the minister, Mr. John Mickelson said, this is going to absorb the expenses. So I thought TCE was going to absorb the expenses. It was not TCE. In here, I have the paper with me here. And the minister said, after the review, this is January the 16th of this year, which is not a long time ago, after the review of IESO, to negotiate a commercial agreement with TCE Energy to let the company recover eligible pre-development expenses. Mr. Mickelson is not spending the money. IESO must report back to Mr. Smith on those discussions within 60 days. So far, I'm not prepared to take a decision. So if you have any bill you send to TCE, because 2023, it says in here, TCE advised the municipality it was willing to reimburse the town costs associated with the development of this project. So who's paying for this, for those things now? Now we're going to go and employ. We're going to sign a contract with a guy that's going to negotiate for us. You already negotiated for a strategy corp that a person that created this, he's on the board of directors for TCE. And I'm not lying. And Mr. Clark here, Mr. Clark Little can verify that. He's a board member. And it was Trudeau's ambassador for Canada to the United States. And he was caught in Ottawa for lobbying. Lobbying. He talked to 41 people about the vaccine. So it is very, very, I'm very disappointed what's going on. And the minister Todd Smith said, we don't make the same mistake again. Talk to municipalities first, use the official plan, see where we're going to put that plant in a municipality that's agreeable. You guys didn't agree to that. Why? Because they already picked the site. It's reverse. They already picked the site. Now we are negotiating. We're all adults in here. We're going to have a baby. We got married. We planned for this baby. Not to have the baby and then you plan later. Please think about this. It is very, very important. Last 2 weeks ago, Chatsworth, just think about this. IESO said we're going to put wind turbines. And I heard this on the news. They said no, because wind turbines has to be 1 kilometer away from any homes. There's no way we can put wind turbines. We don't have wind turbines in here thanks to the grid. We don't have a grid. This company built this thing. Is going to be an improved grid. There will be turbine company popping up like mushroom, going to approach farmers and said, okay, Now we can feed whatever, put wind turbines. And now we can feed. The minister agreed last year, 4th of July, that out of 500 turbines in Ontario, we're supposed to get 1,000 megawatt of electricity. The day before that, the minister said that, and it's written when he announced the nuclear plant at Bruce Power.
Your time is
Yeah,
up.
we got a miserable 11 megawatt. 11 megawatt. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joseph. Our next deputation is from Kelly Haslam, and it also deals with the establishment of the Pump Storage Advisory Committee.
Hi. This is getting to be a habit. Mayor Kentner, Deputy Mayor Keaveney, members of council and staff, my name is Kelly Haslam. I thank you for the opportunity again to speak to you today. Over the past few weeks, there's been much ado over the Pump Storage Advisory Committee's terms of reference. 4 weeks ago, TC Energy muscled in and persuaded you to pause your process and reconsider your original terms. 2 weeks ago, you decided to remove the protected representation of Save Georgian Bay and other groups on the committee. While the rationale behind this change was purportedly to depoliticize the committee, I'm concerned that in actuality, you've created the opportunity for bias, whether actual or perceived. Some of you have expressed in writing and verbally the intent to have Save Georgian Bay representation on the committee. I'm sure you can understand that your intent is not what we're asking for. We're asking for you to align these intentions clearly within written and enforceable terms of reference. I have serious concerns about how the updated terms of reference can practically be applied. So I have 3 questions for you today that I hope you will address. Here are the 3 questions. The terms of reference state that no group or organization will have more than 2 seats on the committee. How can you claim fair representation of all groups and organizations, regardless of the number of citizens that they represent, are limited to the same number of seats? Save Georgian Bay represents about 35% of Meaford's voting age citizens, and that's from handwritten, door-to-door signatures on our petition. Should that not mean that Save Georgian Bay should have 35% of the seats on the committee if we're looking for representation of the community? If you limit every group's seat to only 2, that's assuming that all groups have the same representation. The updated terms of reference state that candidates are not required to disclose their stance on the project. If that's the case, how will you even know if members of a particular group or not? How is membership in a group like Save Georgian Bay's defined? I assure you, we don't issue membership cards, so I'm not sure how you will determine who is a member of that group or not. Those in favor of the project have not formed any particular group or organization. So presumably then their participation is not limited to a certain number of people. I'm not sure how this is fair representation. These are real barriers to your practical application to the terms of reference as they're written today. I urge you to take your time to get the terms of reference right. You paused for TC Energy. Please pause for us as well, an organization that represents 35% of your population. Take a moment to get them right, and I'd love it if you'd take a moment today to answer my questions.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
We're not going to have a dialogue during this portion of the program. This is for input from the public, but please stay with us.
I've heard you answer questions before from deputations, should you choose.
Well, but
I assume you'll choose not to then.
well, we have Yeah, about 8 or so. So just in the interest,
Mhm.
if you stay
I'm
around,
within the 5 minutes.
you will hear,
Stand. I
you
can
will
wait.
hear our discussion and you'll have an opportunity, I think, to get your questions answered through the discussion that we have. However, council, are you interested in answering? If you are, we can just pause and do that. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. Kelly, thank you very much for being here in your presentation today. I just want to share with you publicly that I had the same question with our mayor and interim CAO this morning. And we agreed that we would address that during the discussion on the terms of reference this afternoon.
Which
because
question are you referring to?
I'm referring to basically the first 2 points. If I recall, it's either 4 and 5 or 5 and 6 that suggest representation from organizations, as well as in the next point where it suggests that applicants are not required to disclose whether they're for or against the project. So I saw that as being contradictory. And as I suggest, if you're comfortable with that, we did agree to discuss that during the report when it comes forward. If you're okay with that,
Great,
we'll go
thank
through
you.
the other deputations. And I know that our interim CAO has some words prepared that he wants to share in relation to that when we get to that point, if you're okay
Okay,
with that.
yeah, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Bell?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. And thanks for coming out to council. It's important that people do. I think this is maybe the second or third time that council has been told that TC Energy has muscled or other adjectives have been used to why we did a deferral. I was the councillor that called for the deferral. And at that time, when the report came to council and I read through that report, in the report, there was also mentions of who had been consulted for the formation and what the content would be of the advisory committee. And when I read it through carefully, there was one date, and I believe it was January the 18th, where representative or representatives from TC Energy, but it was alluded in the report that they had full knowledge of what was going to be in the report. And their name was added to a list of those that had been consulted. And I was looking for real clarification as to content and who said what, when, where, and why. It didn't make sense to me at that time to press forward with that. And I personally called for a deferral. I don't get muscled. I'm here to represent what I read and what I understand. And it wasn't a recorded vote, but I think I had full support of council. Only the clerk's office would be able to answer that, but I think I had full support. So we all wanted to step back and take a moment, and we did. And we're still here today about stepping back and having a look. And my real, the real emphasis from myself was this. I do want to hear from people. And, you know, depending on who puts their names forward, they could all be from the registered nonprofit organization called Save Georgian Bay. Because I've just asked for folks to put their names forward and we'll go with that. So anyway, I think I just wanted to make sure that people knew that they were welcome to apply whoever they are and for wherever they live. And that was the message I was trying to bring forward. So I hope that helps maybe a little.
It helps me understand your intent for requesting the deferral. It doesn't change the fact that things other than specific to that intent for the deferral were changed in the time.
Any other questions for Ms. Haslam?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The next speaker is Karen Joy Coleman.
Mayor and Deputy Mayor and councilors, thank you for listening. And I also appreciate the land claim that Councillor Forder read, because to me, that means that we should recognize that we're all stewards of the land. We don't own the land and we need to take care of it. So I'm here to acknowledge staff and council's diligence. We're working to revise the terms of reference and to iterate that we need to take the time to do it properly, and so that we can get some real work started. So I'm here representing myself and my husband, Paul, who can't be here this time. Last council meeting, I read his statement because he was taking care of the plumbers, and this time he can't be here because he's taking care of the cat. But he's listening. So the changes that we suggest in the and they're in the document that I sent this morning, so hopefully you can all see it when I go through it. We're made to support an independent committee, one that serves the town and is free to explore the pump storage project in the best interests of Meaford. So I'm going to start with the mission statement, where it says the Municipality of Meaford Pump Storage Advisory Committee shall gather information about TCE's proposed Ontario Pump Storage Project. We want to change it to its potential positive and negative impacts. I think before it said potential benefits and impacts. So we're changing, we think it's fairer and more balanced if it says its potential positive and negative impacts. Okay, so that's that point in the mission statement. Next is under general, number 4. It's about youth representation. Now, youth is a lovely demographic, and we're doing all this for our youth. But youth is also funny because they don't want, one individual doesn't want to come out and be faced with all of us adults. So I suggest it might be more successful if we get 2 youth to come out. And how we're going to find them is a good question. So I think maybe the PSAC committee can appoint or find them, or staff can also participate in recruiting youth from the local high school. And what might make it attractive to youth is if their time on the committee could be counted as volunteer hours, because they have to have all have to have volunteer hours, or maybe even a credit or a partial credit or something, because that would give them a real reason to invest their time. And, they have to write a report to their teachers and things like that. So give them some skin in the game, is what I'm saying. And so that's what I've put there under general number 4, that PSAC and or staff shall attempt to recruit youth from the local high school where students can earn volunteer hours and or receive credit for participation in the PSAC committee. And again, I'm emphasizing 2 youth. Number 8, the internal working group shall not include a TCE representative. Neither council nor the internal working group shall share information with TCE about PSAC candidates. So I was just questioning who the internal working group is, and I'm just asking that we be careful that we have fair representation and unbiased representation in choosing or specifying the internal working group. And perhaps that's something you can disclose to us. Who is in the internal working group and how are they appointed or chosen or hired? Next, it's under the mandate. It's just a slight change of wording again. Number 4, contribute to the development of strategies to maximize local benefits and minimize negative impacts. Okay. harkens back to our mission statement and coordinates with the mission statement. Number F, under administration. This is about costs. So number 4 starts with council consent. PSAC may apply for research, resources, travel, and other costs to further its mandate. I suggest that we put in costs requested are not subject to TCE approval. And that makes me hearken back to funding conditions as stated in CAO 2022-33 Community Benefits Report, because there are several points in that report where TCE subjects costs to the following conditions. And I feel that town shouldn't be subservient to TCE if the PSAC committee comes forward and says, well, we're concerned about some negative impacts and we would like to get some funding for this. I'm afraid that TCE, because of the report, the CAO report, they might say, no, we're not going to fund that. So I'm just concerned that our hands will be tied for that.
Karen, you're now over your.
Oh, I am?
allotment. Yes, you are, considerably. So
Really?
can you sort of wrap up? We all have your document, which is good. And
Okay, thanks.
thank you very much. Our next speaker is Mark. Can you give us your last name? I will.
Absolutely, no
mess it up.
problem. Yeah. My name is Mark Kochi. Kochi is how it's pronounced. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council and staff. My name is Mark Kochi. As you may be aware, Louise Bucella is unable to attend today and made arrangements with the clerk for me to read her deputation today. Thank you for the opportunity. The unbalanced composition of the Community Advisory Committee has been another unsettling chapter in the ongoing saga of the Ontario Pumped Storage Plan. Again, members of Save Georgian Bay and the Impact Zone have had the door shut in their face. In retrospect, this committee should have been formed 18 months prior to signing an agreement with TC Energy back in July of 2022. Council pushing through and voting willing host status 5-2 appears very conspicuous to me. Who does council work for? Removing the Save Georgian Bay's designated seats as recommended by the Ainley Group, council staff, mayor, and deputy mayor sends a clear message. There's little respect for the people of this community. Over the past 4 years, this council has ignored the knowledge and expertise of the environmental consultants and engineers with many years of experience combined who are members of Save Georgian Bay. These members have designed and built projects like the one proposed on the D&D lands. Council has only listened wholeheartedly to a sole-sourced corporation that builds pipelines with numerous environmental infractions. They have never built a project like this before. It's evident that TC Energy has more clout than the Meaford's residences who pay the taxes around here. It's time to consider the original mandate to include the members of the Meaford Chamber of Commerce, Save Georgian Bay, Impact Zone, and citizens at large. A well-balanced committee should be composed of a group that can share the pros and cons, benefits, and risks at each stage of development. The impact of this project is bigger than anyone can imagine, and that is why it is time to get it right. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Bob Peel.
Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, councilors, staff. I'm Bob Peel. I'm president of the Chamber of Commerce. This is an interesting process for me. In my previous business career, I opened locations in 22 Ontario towns, and we had a checklist of things that we did and we looked for, and I probably scouted 50 towns to complete my projects. I've submitted my application to be a member of this committee, and I've thought long and hard about what the chamber brings to this. the membership of the Chamber of Commerce at this point, based on my surveys of some 90 businesses last year, was quite frankly indifferent. And they haven't seen enough information to make up their mind or to see the impact on their business. But in a 5 or 10 minute discussion, they'll eventually get around to the idea that there's opportunity here. It should be looked at. Somebody dangles a multi-billion-dollar investment, you should probably give them the courtesy of investigating the project. Public Advisory Committee, in my opinion, is a great opportunity to learn. I'm intensely curious about all the different things. I have such deep respect for the people who have the most concern. They're in the impact area. They're people that are worried about insurance and they're worried about quality of the bay, et cetera. I can think of many reasons that I'm not concerned about those, or I can see opportunities to mitigate the concerns. But we have to have fulsome discussions to make that clear to everybody, and not everyone will agree. I would put it out there that if 35% of the population doesn't like this project and 65 does, will the 35 accept the majority rule in a democratic society? That's tough, right? So we want to get as many things right as we can. Whether the Chamber of Commerce and the Save Georgian Bay are named to this committee, I'm rather indifferent. And the reason I am is because I believe that the interested and capable people of the community will show up in those same numbers, whether you name them or not. So I can support whichever way council goes on this, but I do think you should hear from people that are simply interested that there be a public advisory committee, that it not get hijacked with misinformation from either proponents or opponents, that it does its work, that we read the materials presented to us, that we visit sites, we meet with the individuals, we maybe have to go to somebody's kitchen and sit down and have a look and see what everybody sees the world through their own filters, and they make completely reasonable judgments through their eyes based on how they feel, what they've grown up with, what they've read. Not everyone's engineer capable. I want to hear from engineers. I'm not an engineer. I want to hear from people that have legitimate concerns, and you know, no matter how much we reassure them, some people will not. They just won't come on board. That's the way it's going to be. But the Public Advisory Committee, if I'm selected, I know we will endeavor strongly to do the hard work and to give the council good advice. I hope there's lots of different opinions, difference of opinions. I hope there's lots of open minds. I want people to absorb the material and every once in a while even change a mind. Look at something and go, I hadn't considered that. And so I'm eagerly looking to the process. My wife thinks I might be rather foolish to do so. But if people step away from hard work, what are we left with, right? So the Chamber of Commerce is unique in that I can speak to my opinions and my experience, but then I have to canvass the board of directors and the members and see who's got strong concerns and questions and try and bring that in with me as well. And it's not going to be a clean, distinct set of opinions on my side. It's going to be a murky basket of pro and con against every single issue. There's going to be people that are going to see great financial opportunity. But I urge everybody to find a way to get along, figure out how to push through the investigation format of this within the mandate of just this committee. We're not going to be council. We can only do what we do, but we can help council make up their minds. That's what we're doing when we advise them. So I look forward to gathering the materials, understanding the materials, and giving good advice.
Thank you, Bob. And now we have two presentations on different topics. As I think Darcy Chapman is just outside the door. Mr. Chapman, I believe you're speaking first on structures 21 and 22.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I actually am here on two different items, so I hope that I am given a little extra time than just the 5 minutes. I know you guys have been gracious with everybody else. So first is the report on structures 21 and 22. I'd like to make it crystal clear just from the get-go that I'm here to discuss an issue with the report and not the merits of the actual bridge or the construction. I understand that council is elected to make very difficult decisions. You guys have come to a consensus on a go forward with the bridges, and I'm satisfied with that. So my concern, however, though, is that staff has recommended the use of over $480,000 in Ontario community infrastructure funding. I have also read the report that the municipality decided to use a non-traditional purchasing approach to find a vendor that will do the environmental work, the design, and the build. The OCIF grant agreement that the municipality had to sign requires a standard tendering process as per the municipality's purchasing policy to be used in all cases unless previously approved by the province. So my question is, did staff reach out to the province to ensure that this non-tendered approach was sufficient to allow the OCIF to be used prior to making this recommendation? I'd hate to see that council has made a decision to push forward, expecting that OCIF will cover roughly half of the project cost where there is a non-compliant tendering process used. So, very simply, can I be provided with a simple yes or no answer today for that?
The answer is no. That's really useful information, so we can take that back.
Okay, thank you.
So my second topic is broader in that it relates to the minutes from the last meeting, specifically the passage of the budget. Residents were provided a mail out early in January highlighting the budget process and the schedule of dates for all those various meetings. At the January 15th, 26th, 29th, and February 12th meetings, when the budget was discussed in detail, every slide deck provided included a next step slide, which, along with the mailer and the municipal website, consistently advised that the budget would be passed on March 11th. That's today. I specifically requested time off from my employer to be here for this meeting because of that communication. My first question is, can council or senior staff please tell me why the budget was then passed on February 26th when you had communicated at least 6 different times of it being March 11th?
Does anyone on council wish to address that? Okay.
So given that the budget was supposed to be dealt with at today's agenda, I'd also like to speak specifically to the budget process. At each of the meetings noted, the mailer and the website, council consistently advised the public to get engaged and provide feedback. Questions were to be emailed to budgets@meaford.ca and would be answered and posted on the website on a weekly basis. I provided approximately 20 questions on January 26th and a further half a dozen on February 1st. I received no response from staff or from council, and I had zero feedback at all from the municipality. The questions were not answered and were not posted as dictated by your own process. I do know that they were received, however, because they were included on the February 12th agenda as correspondence. I invested more than 10 hours watching the budget meetings and a further 10+ hours reviewing the budget in detail. I also have more than 23 years of municipal finance experience, and I'm afforded a very intimate understanding of how the municipality works, given that I worked for the municipality for over 8 years. All that being irrelevant to the fact that I do live in the municipality. I pay over $5,500 a year in taxes, and therefore I feel absolutely disrespected by this council and senior staff. If you don't want feedback, don't ask for it. Plain and simple. But since you did ask for feedback, I still expect that my questions and concerns to be answered and posted on the website as per your process. As for the budget itself, this document is the most important annual process that you go through as it sets the stage for the 12-month period. Council spent significant time with a lot of public input to create your strategic plan. The budget doesn't once mention how this fits into the plan. It doesn't tell us how it meets any of the goals or deliverables of the plan or gets us any step closer to council's vision for the future. The document, accompanying reports and presentations provided no understanding of what was accomplished in 2023, what is to be accomplished in 2024, or what the future pressures are expected to be coming down on the horizon. There is no mention of any key performance indicators or KPIs that will judge staff success or failures as it relates to council's expectations for the budget. Speaking of KPIs, council paid over $60,000 in 2022 for KPMG to complete a service delivery review, which council adopted as a guiding document. As noted in a September 2022 report from the then CAO Rob Armstrong, one of the key findings from the report is the need to implement strategic corporate KPIs to assist in decision-making. This has been lacking in the past for certain services and is critical to track how the municipality is performing. A year and a half later, there are still no KPIs. That SDR report also spoke of the need for new finance software, yet staff recommended removing a $75,000 contribution towards modernizing the software in the 2024 budget. I was here last year in May discussing my concerns with overinflated revenues in the planning and building department. My concerns were swept aside, yet the department didn't even come close to hitting revenue targets. It in fact issued 20% less building permits in 2023 than it did in 2022. That KPMG document also noted the need to complete an in-depth review of planning services. However, during last year's budget, more staff were added, revenues unjustly increased, there still is no business plan, and 2024 revenues appear to be unattainable yet again. When asked questions specifically by Councillor Bartley, Mr. Voigt only ever said he has a matrix which justifies the calculations. More concerning is that I have had it confirmed by 3 members of council that Mr. Voigt scheduled meetings with 2 or 3 council members at a time to discuss the need for increased staffing. This was done so that quorum wouldn't be reached and therefore didn't have to have the discussion in an open public forum. My last comment today, specifically for Mayor Kentner. Shortly after you were elected, Bayshore Broadcasting did a story on you that was published on November 3rd, 2022, in which you were quoted specifically as saying, "It's about communicating. And I'm very transparent and want to be that way and want to be known as transparent." You were also quoted as saying, "As council, we're not there to manage. We are there to lead." And that, I think, has been the missing element. That we need to show and demonstrate some leadership here. So, you have been in this chair, managing council and our great municipality for the last 16 months. Based on my comments today, can you tell me when it is that you are going to show that leadership, the desire to properly communicate, and the ability to be transparent and accountable that you touted as necessary for success when first elected? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chapman. So are you criticizing our former CAO because the majority of the things that you've talked about here were we've had an interim situation for about 6 months here. So the majority of the 16 months was under the former CAO. Are you criticizing him?
No, I'm not criticizing him at all. The report that I mentioned was done by him, but it is council's responsibility to lead and set the tone, and the KPIs have not been developed. You don't have a budget that is actually structured to show what you're planning on doing next. It doesn't actually coincide at all with your strategic plan. So I have no problem with Mr. Armstrong at all. In fact, I'm not even saying there's an issue with, I'm upset that senior staff didn't respond back to me, but at the end of the day,
I think
the buck stops with council.
Yes.
So I'm upset with council.
If I may, it was very difficult to deal with your questions because analyzed, they're basically your opinions. They're not questions. They're your opinions. And we're not paying you for how to run, the finance department. We have people who are doing that very capably. I'd like it very much if other members of council would just respond, because I want to tell you that this was first of all, an excellent budget in terms of the cost increase to ratepayers. And I feel we're accomplishing an enormous amount, $17 million worth of infrastructure projects being done in 2024. So I would really appreciate it if other counselors would just tell us whether they feel, you know, that we're not getting what we need from our staff or from me as mayor. Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Mayor Kentner, and I won't go there. I will answer a question. Why isn't the budget on today's meeting? I'm going to tell you why. Our staff come through with probably the best budget I've seen since 2014 as a counselor. And it's because of the laid work that we did to get there. We ended up in a few hours, and I'm sorry, I'm responsible for it. I cut the budget to where it needed to be. We all agreed. We had our public meeting. We took questions. It was done. We have the right to change the schedule. And if you want to blame anybody, it was me. I cut the budget process short because we were right where we needed to be. Thank you.
Councillor Yurick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yes, your documentations were received and read. I read all of your documents. I did not respond to them, no. I can honestly say, I wish I had time to respond to every email we get. I wish that was possible. It's not, but I can say that anything that I personally, and I can't speak for anybody else, felt was relevant was discussed with senior staff in terms of how it kind of fit in with the budget. So it was not ignored. It was read and listened to and addressed. It was internal.
So, but you didn't post those answers to the website. So how do I know that it was discussed or what the answers to those questions were?
To your point, again, you said you watched the meetings or the meetings were public. So we discussed things that we felt that were relevant in the topics you brought forward. Once again, we received many different opinions, as the mayor has pointed out, about various things. And we do discuss many of them. If we discussed every opinion that came in, we would be here for months, not days.
But you asked for that public input specific to the budget. You said through the process that the questions and answers would be posted on the website. I'm not trying to disagree with what you did. I'm trying to say that you didn't follow your own process that was communicated to the public. And to say that they're all opinions, I mean, here's just one question that I will throw out there. The budget contains money set aside for a project manager specific to the water and wastewater plant. The enhancement report talks about the fact that it needs to be a professional person who has water and wastewater experience. Yet the budget includes part funding for development charges and part of it being funded from the taxpayer. Why am I, as a taxpayer who lives in Bogner, doesn't have access to water and wastewater services, paying for a portion of that staff person, which is supposed to be dedicated to water and wastewater projects? Why was that not included in the water and wastewater budget? That is not an opinion. That's a question.
You wish to respond to that? And then I'll move back to the council.
I think my response is that, yes, we should have posted answers on the website. No, we didn't in this case. That's an error. As I say quite frequently, we're doing our damnedest to be better at customer service, but things do fall through the cracks and we will do better in the future.
I will say that this has been an extremely busy time and it's been necessary to prioritize. And I feel that the budget, which is the most important exercise of the year, did get full and adequate time and effort put into it, and with an outcome that we're all very, very satisfied with. Deputy Mayor.
So, Mr. Kentner, you just said that it's okay to prioritize not providing communication, not providing answers back to somebody who took time.
So I will say, sir, that the interim CAO and the deputy mayor and I had discussion about your submissions, and it was felt that it was very difficult to answer those without embarrassing you. That is to say, we take them as basically opinion and not as questions. And, you know,
So because you're going to provide an answer to a question that I have, that's going to embarrass me? If I had the answer, I would have asked the question.
We find it difficult to answer questions that are essentially opinions. So I'm sorry, but I just want you to know that we did discuss how do we deal with these questions. And the other thing is, it wouldn't have left much room for other ratepayers to find their questions and answers. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. I only wanted to add, Mr. Chapman, that we, as a council, understand your concerns. We all did read your questions, and I believe staff now has direction to post those answers as interim CAO Smith has suggested on the website, so that will happen. I agree with Councillor Bartley. The budget process was probably the most pleasant that we have experienced. Staff did a superb job of pruning the budget before it was presented to us. And if we look at the other lower tiers within Grey County, we have the second lowest rate at 2.88, and we're very proud of that. But we're not here to argue with you, Mr. Chapman. We understand your concerns. We appreciate them. And I know staff have heard them, and that as many as can will be dealt with. Thank you.
And Councillor Bell?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and welcome, Mr. Chapman. You mentioned, and I'll maybe get yourself to repeat what you said about 3 councillors getting together. And I think what you were trying to impress was we were maybe trying to skirt the law of not having an illegal closed session. Have I picked that up correctly?
That is correct.
Okay. So when I was first elected, I went to a convention in Toronto, and I actually had audience with the he's not the integrity commissioner, but he's the ombudsman's office. And I asked about councils throughout the entire province of Ontario about how council can talk with one another, but we're still not forwarding the business of the municipality. And the ombudsman clearly told me that it was never the intent of the ombudsman's office to not have members of council speaking with one another. And so there's times when we do talk, but I'll call the mayor. The mayor can call myself. We just talk about, is there anything on your mind about what's happening even today? I don't have anything today. It's going to be a regular council meeting, Mr. Mayor. And so we have a conversation like that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, when it is an illegal meeting of council of 4 who predetermined to do something, there's no one there to say all in favor, and there's a recorded of 4. You're skirting the law, but you have the spirit of service. And so that is what I needed to have clarity on. And the example that the ombudsman gave me, there's nothing stopping 4 members of council going for a game of golf and having conversations back and forth. You can talk about how lousy your slice is, just don't be talking about whether you're going to do bridges 21 and 22. So that was the spirit and the law of the letter. So Mr. Chapman, I want you to leave here today knowing this council is more than aware, and we're very sensitive to the perception that ratepayers have that we do things that are not correct. We all endeavor to do things very much correct.
Thank you for that. So to provide clarity, my understanding of this event happened prior to the passage of last year's budget. And it happened with a couple members of council, a maximum of 3 at one time, with Mr. Voigt being present, to discuss the pressures within the department and the need for staffing and what that staffing was going to be used for. If in fact that did happen, I think my claims of trying to skirt the need for an open, public, transparent meeting to discuss these issues is relevant. And if necessary, I will reach back out to those 3 councillors who at the time told me that this was the case, that it did happen, or that at least they were invited to these meetings.
I think I can say that the only thing I recall often telling Mr. Voigt that in today's environment where we are being kind of overwhelmed by applications for zoning changes and for applications, that I feel that I'd be very open to adding to staff to make sure that we can keep up with this and do a good job. I don't ever remember any meeting that I attended with Mr. Voigt that revolved around how many more people he needed, because I'm not really clear on that. Honestly, I can tell you, I had no experience of that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think this is a complicated conversation, but I would remind the deputant and the public that any complaints about closed meetings can be submitted to the Ontario Ombudsman, who will, if they need to, complete an investigation independently of the municipality to determine if a closed meeting did indeed take place.
And if I may, it's now 2:15. We have a lot of people who are here for the purpose of the Pump Storage Advisory Committee, and we're not far from dealing with that report in our consent agenda. If you'll just be patient for a few more minutes, but anyone else? Councillor Greenfield, I think you wanted to speak.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Mr. Chapman, for coming out. As you're very much aware, this council is always welcome to any of our residents coming forward with comments or opinions or questions. You mentioned our strategic plan, I believe. Our strategic plan is largely representative of the strategic priorities that this council set a year and a half ago or a year ago. And I was just wondering, our council has dealt or is dealing with a number of these priorities, and I think our budget represented some of them. I'll start with municipal tree inventory. Okay, that's been done. That's behind us. We have this inventory in place. Our budget items like EV chargers in town, water and waste master plan, expansion of wastewater treatment plant, water and wastewater rate study, downtown public realm, which to me is pretty well involved with reestablishing the market square. At least that's a major factor of it. Community well-being initiatives, parks portfolio management. That's basically done. Short-term accommodation licensing. All of these items were either involved in the 24 budget or have been extensively discussed by our council. So I had a little bit of problem with you saying that we're not into the strategic plan with our funding and our time commitments and our staff commitments. I think we are very much into it. Do we have them completed? Some of them, yes, some of them, no. But I think we're well aware of our strategic plan inventory, and that in the vast majority of cases, they do need funding. And we've been working on that. Did we get all 15, 16 items covered in this year's budget? No, unfortunately not. But certainly the intention is, and always was from the outset, to get these completed by the end of this term.
Thank you. My comment was not that council is not doing these things. My comment is that the budget does not tell a story. It doesn't tie it in. I would ask anybody sitting in the audience, is anybody aware of any of this by reviewing the budget document, that council is actually doing this work? Because the budget itself, the presentations by senior staff, the discussions that all there, this is the first time Councillor Greenfield has actually ever tied A plus B to equal C. That's what I'm trying to get at. The budget is a document that should be used as the communication tool by council for the public.
This year, we had an increase in participation in the statutory public meeting on the budget. I remember the first year there was one person, two people the second year, and there were three people this year. If this municipality was upset about our budgeting exercise, it'd been a little more like this, or more so, I'm sure.
But sir, you just told me that you didn't post the questions because of other people that my questions may inundate other people. Yet you only had ever posted 5 questions online and you had 3 people for the public meeting. So I honestly feel as though because the questions came from myself, because the comments came from me, they were disregarded and not included.
I can tell you there was a lot of angst. We would have liked to have included, and if you write questions next time, we'll be absolutely certain to include them thoroughly. Now, you've had more, not only
Nope,
your
thank you.
time, but you've also had the opportunity to dialogue with council, which we didn't give everybody. And I thank you for coming, and
And I appreciate that. Thank you.
thank you. Council inquiries. Oh, I'm sorry, public questions. Are there any public questions today? Because you also, the general public has an opportunity to ask a question if you have one. Seeing none, council inquiries. Any council inquiries today? And I see none. So we move on to our consent agenda. Items on this list have been before the committee of the whole for discussion. Council may choose to pass all of these items or bylaws with one motion, or a member may also request that an item be pulled for separate consideration. So does anyone wish to pull, Deputy Mayor?
Your worship, pull item C, please, the Pump Storage Advisory Committee.
Yes, okay. So can I have a motion to,
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, could we pull A as well, please?
oh, pull A?
Yes,
Okay,
please.
I'm sorry, did I miss a hand?
No, my hand.
Okay, oh, well, I'm sorry to miss yours. Okay. So why don't we go ahead and pass item B. The recommendation is that Council of the Municipality of Meaford direct staff to conduct trials during the 2024-2025 winter maintenance period to see the impact and practicality of providing in-house service for downtown snowbank removal at a half a meter and within 72 hours, and report back to council. Can I have a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Bell, seconded by Councillor Urick. I think this was your motion. Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Shall we proceed directly to item C? Is that agreeable to council, and give the people waiting for this discussion to have it happen? Let's do that. So the recommendation is, be it resolved that bylaw 2024-13, being a bylaw to establish a pump storage advisory committee, be taken as read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Can I have a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Bartley, seconded by Councillor Urick. Discussion. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and happy to begin. And I want to thank again Kelly Haslam for bringing forward this question. I want to address on page 1 and page 2 of the terms, items 5 and 6. Number 5, I'm going to read it for the members of the audience. No more than 2 members from any group or organization shall be appointed to the PSAC. Number 6, a potential PSAC member shall not be prevented from appointment simply by virtue of being inclined for, against, or neutral on the proposed project. No declaration of position shall be required of PSAC members, but members should maintain an open and objective attitude. So I agree with all of that. I just would like to ask our interim CAO, Mr. Smith, for some clarity, because to me it's a bit contradictory in terms of no declaration of position to be mentioned, but we also want to make sure that we have members from the groups and organizations which we understand to be Save Georgian Bay, the Impact Zone, and the Chamber of Commerce. So if I may, I'll ask you, Mr. Smith, for your thoughts.
Through Mr. Mayor, I can read these slightly differently. I think, as always, council can do whatever they would like to do with this. The intent of clause number 5, to say no more than 2 members from any group or organisation should be appointed to the PSAC, was to try and make sure that there was a broad base of people as possible, including people who are not members of anything, because I think it's really important and certainly something that we're very committed to have people who are in favour of the project, against the project, and have no opinion on the project, I think, very importantly as well. And as Ms. Haslam said, people who are perhaps in favour might not have a group, and presumably if there are no opinions, then you're probably not in a group either. With regard to number 6, I don't see them being as mutually exclusive. I think I could, if I wish to be a member of Save Georgian Bay, but not have a definitive opinion in one direction or other about the project. It could be that I simply want more information about it. I think the idea of that was just to say, you're not required to have a camp. You can have any opinion that you would like, and we're still interested in hearing from you. But if council thinks that there's a way that some of this can be clarified better, then I'm all for it.
I may, your worship, to follow up, and I don't necessarily have the language, but I think some clarification here would be helpful, both for us as members of council and particularly for members of the public who may be interested in providing applications for this committee. So I'll have to leave that to you, Mr. Smith, perhaps to suggest some alternate language here.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can only do that if you tell me the sort of thing you would like to say. Because I don't know, to be honest.
Okay, Councillor Greenfield.
Thanks, your worship. On item C under purpose, and I'm looking at the Google report here. So it's page 4 on that. I'm not sure what it is on the municipal report. Anyway, the sentence starts out saying the Peace Act will focus on understanding the potential benefits and impacts associated with the TC Energy project, and it goes on further. This goes back to a couple of weeks ago. I had problems with this sentence, and I still have. Understanding the potential benefits and impacts. Impacts to me is a neutral word. Projects can have positive impacts and they can have negative impacts. To start off with the lead words potential benefits of a project that TC has never attempted before, I would ask that the words potential benefits be struck. I'm quite okay with impacts, as I say. They can be both positive, they can be both negative, but to declare in the purpose potential benefits right up front, I don't think we're there yet, folks. So anyway, that's my opinion. I have trouble with those two words and would prefer if they were not in.
Would you be content to use the phraseology recommended by one of our deputants this afternoon, which said
did sound more friendly to my way of thinking,
like potential benefits and impact. What was the word? Impact. Or a negative impact mitigation or something, but anyway.
So positive and negative impacts, I heard.
Okay, yeah. Are you making a note on this, Mr. Smith? That'd be good if you do.
Sorry, so Councillor Greenfield, you'd like to use the words that Ms. Coleman suggested?
Yeah, I would prefer them to what the report says.
Trying to do two things at once, as is normal. So what I would suggest then, that I think the motion that you're providing is that the clause C1 of the terms of reference be amended to replace the words the potential benefits and impacts, and replace that with the potential positive and negative impacts.
Yes, if you need an amendment, I'll make that amendment, but
seconded for that?
would be preferable
That's
to me.
seconded by Councillor Forder. And do you want to vote on that at this point so that we can start accumulating any amendments? Yes.
Will C1 be amended by replacing the words potential benefits and with potential positive and negative impacts? Oh, sorry, potential positive, I'm going to take out potential benefits and impacts with potential positive and negative impacts.
Thank you. So,
Are you dealing with this?
Yes.
amendment? Yeah, okay.
in Miss Joy Coleman's recommendations, she did add with potential positive and negative, and to Councillor Greenfield's comment, that removes the neutrality of the word, and I understand that. My understanding is one of the purposes of this committee is to totally look at the benefits to this community long-term of what could come from this. So I'm not sure how striking that. To that point, Miss Joy Coleman's she didn't actually remove the word maximize local benefits in the mandate. She added and minimize negative impacts, but she purposefully left strategies to maximize local benefits and minimize negative impacts. So in her own verbiage is using the terms local benefits. My understanding of this committee is, yes, to look at ways to mitigating any negative impacts. But my understanding of this committee as well is how to maximize any potential benefits that are going to be seen through this project. So I'm not sure why we're removing the word benefits.
It would help if I understood a little clearer. Strategy Corps is going to negotiate a benefits package, but are we looking to this committee to actually come up with early recommendations on things that we might want, like, because there are other stages to go through first, including a visioning exercise and also a stock taking of where we stand at this point in time, as well as future desires. So,
absolutely. I think Strategy Corps will only negotiate based on what we tell them are the things that we as a community and a council want. So they will be involved in helping us to figure that out. And to me, at least, part of that help will be to talk to this committee that we'll have put together of people who have an interest in the project. So I definitely think that this committee is involved in that. It'll be council's decision as to what direction to give to Strategy Corps about what our negotiating stance should be and what we think a community benefit should be, and then backwards and forwards between council and Strategy Corps. But I definitely think this committee's got a role in providing some information at various stages or giving some opinion.
So my question to Councillor Greenfield is then, do you see a point in leaving benefits in there as?
It's my personal opinion, your worship, and mine alone, that having the term potential benefits is paving the road for the committee to fall. And I object to that.
Okay. Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Mayor Kettner. And I'm about to open up a can of worms here. Thank you to our interim CEO for an explanation. So what is this committee about? I'm under the impression it was that we could look at potential benefits and maybe impacts and some negative ones to maybe smooth the road over. But I was under the impression that the committee was for is to get ideas to move forward to give to Strategy Corps. That's what, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. This is not another tool to shut the project down. And I think there's people thinking that's what's going to happen here. Well, this is a tool to shut the project down. We have voted 5-2 to go forward. And this is to move forward the best possible way and for the best results for the municipality. If I'm wrong, please tell me.
Mr. Smith?
For you, Mr. Mayor Kentner, I think that in my eyes, and again, this is only my eyes, this committee is here to give advice to this council about anything and everything related to this project. It's a forum for us to bring people together on a regular basis so that we as staff, as council, and as the committee members can learn more, so that we can ask questions, so we can represent our community in the questions that they wish to be asked, both that may be positive, that may be negative, that may just be questions. It's to help the municipality take positions during the environmental and impact assessment process, should one happen. It's to help the municipality go through a community benefit negotiation if we get to the stage where that happens. I think this committee isn't for a specific purpose at all, other than giving advice to council on things related to the project, whatever that might be, is my opinion.
Yeah, and I think the mission statement makes it pretty clear here. Do we, are you ready to vote on this particular amendment? So that clause C1 be amended by replacing the words potential benefits and impacts with potential positive and negative impacts. I don't think it makes a lot of difference, to be honest with you.
Words.
Yeah. So all in favor of this amendment? That is carried. Deputy Mayor, I think you're now ready with another.
Thank you, Worship, and I appreciate your indulgence while I had to think about this for a minute. So if I may suggest in item number 6, if we come to the sentence, no declaration of position shall be required, and I'd like to add with an amendment, but is encouraged to achieve a committee balanced with membership in favor of, opposed to, and indifferent to the project. And then remove the word but and a new sentence, members should maintain an open and objective attitude.
Can I ask you to try that again a little slower?
Certainly.
Under which?
We're on page 2.
Okay. 6.
Page 2.6. To achieve point 5, I'm going to suggest no declaration of position shall be required, but is encouraged to achieve a committee balanced with membership in favor of, opposed to, and indifferent to the project. Remove the word but, start a new sentence. Members should maintain an open and objective attitude.
These are not quite your words, because I'm not a stenographer by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it'll get us to the right place.
Thanks, Your Worship. I think this it largely adds to what Mr. Peel was mentioning about the necessity to have members with an indifferent attitude, and I think that's very important. I think we've spent maybe too much time talking about in favor, not in favor, but there are a number of people out in our municipality who haven't made up their minds yet, who are still, or maybe will never, but they are indifferent, they are uncommitted, and we need those people on this committee too.
Any other
I just need a
Suggestion.
seconder for that amendment, please.
Pardon?
We need a seconder.
Oh, a
for that
seconder, okay,
amendment.
a seconder for that, Councillor Greenfield. Any further comment? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Councillor Bell.
Well, thanks, Mr. Mayor, and I want to say thanks to the folks who are members of Save Georgian Bay for sticking with this council meeting this afternoon. It's really important that you do. Most of you have read the report probably as often as I have, or maybe more. But I just want to touch on the second page of our report, number 12. The province of Ontario has decreed that there are certain advisory committees that a council shall have. You have a heritage district, you shall have a heritage advisory committee. We've got members on this council that serve on the Access for Ontarians. We have to have that. So item 12 says that, and I'm going to, before I read it, I want everybody to know this whole council, all of us want an advisory committee. We all do. And item 12 says that this exists at the pleasure of council. And I think that that is something that you need to know, that we want you on a committee. We want to hear from you folks, and we want to do this. And it is our good pleasure that we want to have this advisory committee. And something else that does come up is when you read through this, those folks that are on any advisory committee, you are an extension of council. And by that, you sign a code of conduct. And that's important because who really wants to serve on a committee that you're spending your time and then you say to yourself after, I'm knocking myself out, I'm going here. It's a business-like approach to what the subject matter is. So you'll be signing a code of conduct, and by that, there's a decree of decorum, and we want you to do that. So this is going to exist at our good pleasure. We want to have it. Every one of us want to have it. And I'm just going to say thanks for sticking with it because it's important to hear. So thanks for sticking around.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. One more. I'm on page 4 now, under D, meetings. Item number 3, which I'll read for the members present. Agendas shall be prepared and published by municipal staff. A meeting between the project administrator, PSAC chair, and one of the 2 council members of the committee shall take place a week prior to the agenda publication. I would just like to add to that, to be consistent with our council agenda review process, that we add and a rotating member of the committee, so that we have then the chair, one of the 2 council members on the committee, and a rotating member of the committee present at agenda reviews.
Councillor Porter. I'd like to speak to that. I think that's very valuable. It helps me as the mayor in setting agendas, and it certainly helps, I think, individual members of the committee because over time they will have rotated through this process and they'll have a much clearer understanding of how the agenda is set and how to contribute to the agenda. And I think that's very valuable. Have we got that in the right phraseology yet?
I think this is a fairly simple one.
Okay. So has it been seconded? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. All in favor? And that is carried. Councillor Forder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're working through this process. This is some very good discussion. One thing I just wanted to, an observation, I don't necessarily have an amendment to make, but just want to throw this out there so we're all reminded that in the mandate and anywhere in this terms of reference, there's no reference to environmental stewardship. And I just want to remind everybody, Meaford's official plan states regarding significant environmental and topographical features, the protection of these attributes is a key underlying principle in this official plan. And for this reason, This official plan establishes an environment first philosophy in the municipality. This means that protecting significant natural heritage features and functions shall take precedence over development. So while there is much emphasis on maximizing the benefits, there's no reference in the mandate whatsoever to having a lens of environmental stewardship, which is one of the core pillars of our official plan. So I just want to throw that out and remind everybody that is this something that we need to add to the mandate, recognizing that this is such an important part of the official plan that we all work so hard for. Just want to throw that out there just for discussion.
And I guess my question, and maybe for you, our CAO, given that the land is controlled by the federal government, is that just, sort of, wallpaper in the background, or is it, does it have any effect?
I certainly think that our official plan and our concern for the environment is very important as part of this, because although, yes, the project itself might take place on the federal lands, construction materials will go through the municipality, the bay is impacted and so on. So I think it is definitely something that would be part of this. In fact, part of what I've just said earlier was that this is to give advice and input as we go through the environmental assessment process. To Councillor Forder's specific point, we absolutely can add something in there to that effect, but I also don't think it's strictly necessary. We talk in that mandate in more sort of broad terms, in that we're trying to engage, inform, listen, facilitate community engagement, gather technical and social research, which I think will be very much related to a lot of those environmental issues, because I know that applies to technical information on species at risk and fisheries and water usage and all of those sorts of things. And then to provide recommendations to the CAO and Council with respect to comments, concerns and areas of interest identified by the community. And I am 100% certain that environmental issues are going to be one of those comments, concerns and areas of interest that the community will identify. So I don't think it's necessary, but I also don't think it's a bad thing if we do.
Do you want to make it a motion then? Okay. Councillor Bell.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Brandon, Mr. Porter. If someone's got this at hand, and I am not that good at bringing up historical things, but when this council said that we would, with conditions, be willing, my impression about those conditions all hinged on the environment. Did I miss that? That's really important to us. So, and that was part of our key conditions of this, that they're going to be met at all levels. I think it says something like at all levels or pertinent levels. So maybe someone's got those 4 things that we did. Is that putting someone too harsh on a spot, or does someone actually have that?
I think you'll find they're extremely comprehensive and definitely make it clear that our approval on February the 28th, or whatever it was last year, all we did was strengthen our resolve that the project had to pass every federal and provincial environmental test.
The clause is, just as that reminder, subject to the following conditions: written confirmation from TCMG of complete cost recovery for all costs reasonably incurred by the municipality, etc. Development of a regulatory plan and related information gathering and disclosure requirements to address the central role and future actions of the municipality regarding the proposed facility over its life cycle from planning to decommissioning. Formal agreement between the municipality and TCMG on community benefits, and then approval of the proposed facility by all relevant jurisdictions under all applicable environmental, energy and land use processes, including any applicable environmental and/or impact assessments, and all applicable regulatory approvals, authorizations, licenses and permits.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. And if I just may add my thinking, because I brought that motion forward on February 27th of 2023, was really to establish our leverage. Because until each and every one of those conditions is met to our satisfaction, then our approval of this project remains conditional. And we have heard the Energy Minister say that he will not put a project anywhere where a community is not in favor. And we are only conditionally in favor. And I think that really sets the tone for this committee, and the work of the PSAC is to address those conditions. And, you know, they do include the benefit side of things. We spoke to short, medium, and long term, but more importantly, they speak to Councillor Forder's point about the environment. So I see those conditions really as establishing the work for this committee. Thank you.
I want to ask if council is interested in pursuing Ms. Coleman's suggestion of two students, actually. I think that I'd like us to decide, we're trying to get this committee up and running as quickly as possible, but we're emphatic that we are trying to get it right, that it will satisfy all interests. And I guess my question is, how do you feel about that? Is that something that you want to entertain? And if not, why not? Or if so, why? Councillor Bell?
Mr. Mayor, so it's been a long time since I've been in high school, but got to be 18. You got to be able to vote, right? So can you be 18 and be in high school? I guess I got my driver's license in grade 11 kind of thing. So is that the age band correct? Or
I think that we should never discourage high school age young people from being interested in municipal affairs, especially in their own municipality. I think that's important, and I think I would see some value in this. It does increase, like we're concerned also that we're trying to keep this to an 11-member situation, so that may change it. But I just wanted to give you the opportunity to respond to that, because we are pressing ahead and want to make sure that we aren't here in 2 weeks' time still making amendments to this motion, so, or to this report.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I've just pulled up the appointment policy because I had a vague memory of a conversation a few years ago along those kind of lines. And the appointment policy the council passed back in 2018 does say that a member must be a resident of or business owner in the municipality of Meaford, or an employee of a business based in the municipality. At that time, council did discuss whether or not to reduce the age limit from the age of majority and the voting age to, I think, 14. And my memory is that the council decided not to at that time. Nothing to say we can't change that again or waive that rule in order to have somebody under 18. But I think that our appointment policy says that we'll take people who are over 18. The other thing on that one is that just because it says we will try to have one doesn't stop us from having 6. We could have plenty more, and council will be the group that will decide how that is. The more prescriptive we get about this, the harder it is to fill the terms of the reference. Because if we only get one person who's interested, but we've said we're going to have 2, does that mean that we leave a seat vacant and so on?
Should we just add, I think we have a clause dealing with one person under 25. Can we just add to that we would perhaps also be willing to entertain somebody who is actually a student?
I don't think we need to specify that particularly. I think if there is somebody under 18 who wants to apply, then council will have the opportunity to make that decision when they see the list of applications.
Well, I'll post it on my Facebook page that students are also able to participate if they wish. Any other issues to discuss? Okay, Councillor Ford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had second thoughts about what I said earlier. I would like to see that in the mandate with regards to the official plan and recognizing there should be an environment first philosophy. I understand that there's wording that addresses that, but it's not in the mandate. And I would like to propose an amendment that we just add that, just to make sure that everybody involved just maintains that lens going forward.
Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Greenfield. Any discussion? All in favor? And that will find its way into the mandate. Is there anything else you want to discuss before we vote on this? I wonder if there's anything I can say just to assure everyone that our desire and our objective is to ensure that people who have gone to all the work that Save Georgian Bay has gone to are represented on this committee, that people who are in the impact zone of the development are represented on this committee. That is, as I say, our desire and our goal. And I assure you that our staff is behind this. Our entire effort on this is to have a committee that will be a benefit to council, a benefit to the proponent, and a benefit to the municipality. And I hope that if we vote on this, that you will give us an opportunity to proceed to have this committee formed and give it a chance. Yes, go, Councillor Fordert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have so many notes that it's hard to keep track of where I'm at. With regards to the two members of council that are to be appointed to this committee, in the interest of balance, would it make any sense to appoint one councillor that voted in favor of the project and one councillor that voted not in favor? Or is that something that, just want to ask what the rest of council thinks about that as a means of just providing balance from a council level?
Do you want to make that a motion? See if you get a seconder.
Yes, I would. Thank you.
And is there a seconder? Deputy Mayor, all in favor? Sorry, you
Well, the council members not asked, 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago, to pick out their preference of committees they wanted to sit on, and would that not provide a guideline as to who is interested in serving?
So yes, we were hoping to have the council appointments bylaw on this agenda, but the mayor and I were still working on that, so it's coming to the next meeting. So I don't think we actually need a motion to that effect today, because it's not actually, I don't think it changes the terms of reference. But there will be I think the mayor can receive that feedback and make that suggestion based on people's preferences, and then council will see that bylaw and can amend that bylaw as well if they need to when it comes forward at the next meeting.
So we're voting on a motion that
I don't think we need a motion for this one. You've just taken the feedback from your colleagues, and then that will come to the next set of bylaws.
Okay. Very good. Then are we ready to vote on the actual recommendation? I will read it again. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-13, being a bylaw to establish a pumped storage advisory committee, be taken as read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. All in favor? And that is unanimous. And I want to thank those in the audience for helping us, and those who came to previous meetings for helping us get this a lot closer to what you like. It may not be perfect, but I believe that we are going to get good people on this committee who will work together and will bring us into a lot better future as far as this very contentious issue is concerned. So, thank you. We go back to item A on our consent agenda. I think it was A that we, yes, and it's a delight to vote on this. The recommendation, and I'll read it out, that Council of the Municipality of Meaford, 1, direct staff to design and reconstruct structures 21 and 22 as 2-lane structures. 2, authorize the execution of a contract with Northern Mat and Bridge for design and construction of structures 21 and 22 following completion of the municipal class environmental assessment process. 3, authorize an upset limit of $82,500 to fund the professional service costs associated with the replacement of structures 21 and 22 being completed by R.J. Burnsides and Associates. 4, authorize the treasurer to transfer $407,391 from the Bridge and Structures Reserve. 5, authorize the treasurer to transfer $482,633.58 from the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund Reserve Fund. And 6, authorize the treasurer to transfer the remaining project costs from the tax stabilization reserve to an upset limit of $142,795.42. Do I have a mover and seconder? It's moved by Deputy Mayor and seconded by I'm going to say Councillor Greenfield because there's a lot of history to this motion. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So there are two amendments that I'd like to suggest up on the screen. The first relates to waiving the purchasing policy to allow for this process to go forward. That's something that should have been in the original motion that we just missed in the 6 clauses and probably should have had a 7th. So that says that the motion be amended to insert an additional clause between clause 1 and clause 2 to read that the purchasing policy be waived to allow for this award to be made following the informal RFP process. And we call it the informal RFP process because in effect, we went out to 3 suppliers and said, please, can you tell us what you can do and how much it would cost? And that's what we do when we do it informally rather than doing formal bid documents, so to speak. So if somebody was willing to move that, and then we can talk about it, and then I'll deal with the second one in a moment.
So moved by Councillor Bartley, seconded by Councillor Bell. And we should vote on that at this point in time. Yes. All in favor? Sorry, you have a question? Or a statement?
Through you to Mr. Smith. Yeah, I'm assuming the second part suggests that Chatsworth still be involved in the funding or
Yes.
Yeah, a part of the puzzle.
Yeah, what we'll do once we know we're moving forward and council say to go ahead with this project, we'll be in touch again. I don't think we have been already, but we'll do it formally, say.
Oh, yeah, that's all one motion this top paragraph. So let's deal with that first then. Any further discussion? All in favor? That is carried. And the second one then?
And then the second paragraph relates to what the deputy mentioned earlier, which, as I said then, was useful information that I wasn't aware of. And it says that the motion be amended to remove clauses 4, 5, and 6 and replace them with an additional clause to read, direct staff to bring forward further information regarding funding sources for this project following consultation with the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund administrators.
And for the record, I would like to thank Mr. Chapman for pointing this out.
Absolutely. So basically this just removes all 3 of the clauses that say use this pot of money for this, use this pot of money for that, and then says that once we've consulted with them to find out whether they'll accept this informal RFP process, then we'll come back and get you to actually pass a resolution about funding. You will remember, though, I hope, that originally we had talked about funding a large amount of this from the tax stabilization reserve made up of the money we received from the province for federal education PILT back pay. And so if we are not able to use the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund, but this particular project, I'm not overly concerned. We do have it in another reserve but we use this because the Bridge 2 project,
the Algonquin Lakeshore Road Reconstruction and Water Main Project didn't require this amount of funding. And so we were looking at using it for this project instead. And we'll also look at maybe other opportunities of different projects we could utilize this money for as part of this recommendation back once we've done some investigation.
Thank you, Tori.
Okay. Any discussion, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. My only concern, Mr. Smith, is this won't create any delay in the process of going forward. It'll just be a matter of
that's why I've written it like this, in the fact that it maintains the clauses that say direct us to move forward with the design and reconstruction of 2-lane structures. It maintains that authorize the execution of a contract with Northern Matten Bridge, and it maintains the upset limit for professional services costs that we need to pay to Burnside. So all of those will mean we can carry on going forward, particularly with the environmental assessment bit, which I know Tori was writing the other day. And so then we'll just keep going on. And in effect, this will make it an unfunded project for the space of, call it a month, before we come back with the updated information.
Tori?
And through Your Worship, just to reference the report, the first part of the schedule, as Matt mentioned, is for Burnside's work. And so it's not until later in the next couple months that Northern Mat and Bridge will be required to start their work to make sure that we meet the required timeline. So we will be working with them to make sure that they get things up and going. But really, right now, we're focused on the environmental assessment and then some of those design components that we might require based on some external site features that we'll be getting Burnside to look at.
Anything else? Are we ready to vote? All in favor? Thank you. And that is carried, and that completes our consent agenda.
So no, we just need to go back and deal with the whole of that structures 21 and 22 motion.
Okay.
Now we've made some amendments.
So,
So I can read it as a whole if that will be useful.
yes.
So the motion as a whole now, which has already been moved and seconded, but now amended, says the Council of the Municipality of Meaford, 1, direct staff to design and reconstruct structures 021 and 022 as 2-lane structures. 2, authorize, that the purchasing policy be waived to allow for this award to be made following the informal RFP process. 3, authorize the execution of a contract with Northern Matton Bridge for design and constructions of structures 021 and 022 following the completion of the Class EA process. 4, authorize an upset limit of 82,500 to fund the professional services costs associated with the replacement of structures 21 and 22 being completed by RJ Burnsides and Associates. And then 5, direct staff to bring forward further information regarding funding sources for this project following consultation with the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund administrators.
All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, we're moving into items for consideration, and the first is recommendation that Council of the Municipality of Meaford approve heritage permit heritage 08-2023 for 12 to 34 Collingwood Street. Can I have a mover and seconder to put that on the table? Moved by Councillor yes, and second by Councillor Bartley. Sorry. And Meredith, you're on.
Through you, Your Worship. Thank you. And good afternoon, everybody. So yes, this heritage application is, as you know, requesting approval for a 3-story condominium building with 16 apartment units and 2 townhouse blocks with 5 units per building. And I just wanted to note that that does represent a reduction in size and scale from the zoning bylaw amendment that was passed pertaining to this property in 2022. Just wanted to highlight that. And I just also wanted to note that there was an error in the report, which made reference to a recessed entrance being discussed at the Heritage Advisory Committee in relation to this file. That was just an error in the report. In fact, the rest of that section was correct, and the Heritage Advisory Committee discussed the building design, parking, the commercial use of the property, the inclusion of streetscape renderings in the proposal, and the proposed materials for building once they get to that stage in their consideration of the file on February 21st. Just wanted to make that little correction. And yeah, staff are making their recommendation for approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Meredith? Could I ask, does the reduction of the height of the 1 unit, does that result in a lower density at all or not?
Yes, so the proposal is representing a reduction in 1 level and also units. So yes, a lower density would be a result of this change.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay, all in favor? Thank you. That's carried. And then we have a second one, which the recommendation is that Council of the Municipality of Meaford approve heritage permit application heritage 10-2023 based on revised drawings received on March 1st, 2024. And over to you for
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship. Yes. So the 2 changes that are proposed based on the revised drawings that were provided by the applicant are the change to the entrance at grade from the garage door style to a recessed central entrance. And then the second one is some changes to the windows that are flanking that proposed entrance to frame the entranceway and a different glazing for those windows. Since the existing recessed central entranceway will be maintained if the application is approved, and the windows were reviewed based on against the applicant's historical photos that were submitted, and staff are satisfied with that and are recommending approval of the application.
I think, Councillor Greenfield, I think the Heritage Committee, oh, you actually were not at that meeting. You were at a library, but okay. So anyway, then if I can speak for the Heritage Committee, I believe that they were very happy with the decision to retain the central entry, and the garage door, popular as they are, is not, the place for it is not where we already have a recessed central entry. And I think it's the combination they're making too with the retractable windows is going to be, it's going to be a showpiece. And hopefully another restaurant on Sykes Street. So all in favor? Oh, sorry, you have a question. Sorry, okay, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. So my question initially pertains to the fold-out windows. What sort of liability or risk is there? These things are folding out into the sidewalk area, and in terms of the scale, it doesn't seem like it would be any higher than a door entryway. If we have somebody like our good friend JD Moffat walking down the street, he's going to get decapitated. So I just want to get some idea of, is this a safe design for people that are going to be walking up and down the street with this window sticking out? It's not clear in the diagram is what I'm trying to get at.
Certainly, yeah. So the proposed design are, as I said, it's the windows that are flanking the entrance, and it's going to be this like fold away glazing system. What I can say, I can't really speak to the safety myself, but what I can say is that anything that is proposed is going to be reviewed at the building permit stage, and that it's going to have to comply with Ontario Building Code. And there's a lot of measures in the Ontario Building Code that are based on safety. So that's kind of when anything relating to design that would be considered unsafe would be considered and reviewed. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and for indulging me. Just a question, is any idea what the plans are for occupancy of this unit? What is it intended to be used for? Does anybody know? Restaurant. Oh, restaurant? Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. And Meredith, I just wanted to ask a question, if I may, in relation to the process. This is a change from the plan that was presented to the Heritage Committee, namely the garage door back to the recessed entrance. So I just wondered, normally if there is a change such as this coming before council, would that plan go back to Heritage for their approval before it comes straight to council? I just wondered if you could clarify a normal process for me.
Certainly, yeah, I'd be happy to. So generally speaking, the way that we are going to be structuring the files are that the Heritage Advisory Committee will consider the file, make their recommendation to council. Council will review the file and make their decision. We are looking as staff to start really expediting our heritage permit process, especially because we need to make sure that we're meeting the timelines under the Heritage Act. And so for us, that timeline is 90 days from the time in which the notice of receipt is issued. So we do need to make that our priority. So that's kind of where we're going to be going forward. So yeah, under ordinary circumstances, the file would be considered by the Heritage Committee, and then it would make its way to council as the next step.
Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Meredith. I need a motion to the whole unless you want a short break. Short break, 10 minutes. Okay, we're adjourned for 10 minutes. I think it's exactly 10 minutes and we are going to move into committee of the whole. We need a motion to do that. Moved by Councillor Forder, seconded by Councillor Uhrig. All in favor? And the first recommendation is that committee of the whole receive report financial 2024-05 council remuneration for 2023 for information purposes. Need a mover and seconder by the deputy clerk and by Councillor Bartley. Any discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Forder.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So with regards to the council remuneration here, I just wanted to go on record just to explain that the sundry expenses that I had were a little bit higher than the rest of council because as a new councillor, I did attend two AMO new councillor trainings. One was the AMO new councillor training. The second was the AMO Foundations and Advanced Land Use Planning. So just in case anybody's looking at those sundry expenses, that's precisely why my number is a little bit higher as a new councillor.
And we're glad you did that. That's education. Continuing education is the name of the municipal representatives. Exactly. Next, that council of the
Just
whole-
need a vote to receive that one, please.
Oh,
Mr. Mayor.
sorry. Yes. All in favor. Good. Thank you for keeping track. The next is the Lakeview Cemetery Master Plan. The Committee of the Whole recommend Council of the Municipality of Meaford adopt the 2023 Lakeview Cemetery Master Plan as a guiding document. Mover and a seconder. Moved by Deputy Mayor and seconded by Councillor Uhrig. Discussion. And I would appear actually, do you want to hear from no, do you want to hear from the retiring Mr. Willis first and then ask your questions? Okay, go right ahead, Rod.
I bet. Thank you. Thank you through your worship. Thank you very much, everyone. I've done a number of master plans for the municipality in parks in Center Street, McCarroll Park, St. Vincent Park, but this one here is really near and dear to my heart because I know the people that are up at Lakeview Cemetery and visit it. It's very close to them. So this one here was as mentioned in the report, we do have some services that we are running near the end of in the last couple of years in cremation burials. And we wanted to make sure before we start, putting cremation burials in other areas that we have a good plan for the entire cemetery. So anyway, so through the public consultation process, which I enjoyed very much, it was done in 3 parts with an online survey, some hard copies, and we actually spent 2 days at the arena having people coming in and out of the arena. And it was really good to talk to all these people to see what they had to say. I also met with the clerical group through Councillor Forder, hooked us up there. We had the discussion with them. They were very happy with everything going on. So now we have an overall plan. The most important part of this now is the infill strategy that is discussed in the report. So we can make sure we utilize all the area first that we're utilizing now before we start expanding out into the green area. So we wanted to make sure that we had an entire plan for the entire area before we move forward with the infill strategy. So anyway, I'm quite satisfied with the design and everything that's up. It does discuss services that we currently offer and additional services that could be offered. And I think it's a great plan. So anyway, take any questions.
Thank you, and thank you to Jessica. Councillor Uhrig.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the team that worked on it. I now know more about cemeteries than I ever thought I was going to in my life, and it was very comprehensive. It was well done. My question, I think the plan is great. I really don't have any issues with it. My question relates to one thing I found was interesting. The more I'm on here, the more I learn that we have 8 active and 22 inactive cemeteries in the area, which surprised me. I didn't know we had that many. I know there's sundry ones around, which brings me back to a while back, January, I believe, there was a motion went through from Clearview Township, and they were addressing just that whole cemetery transfer abandonment issue. And I'm just curious whether we have any concerns about that still, or how we would address that with any potential abandonment, or somebody trying to throw those back under our auspice and responsibility, because under the terms of what they laid out in their letter, it obviously does become not a burden, but it becomes our responsibility. So I'm just curious where that falls with the ones that are out there that are inactive.
Maybe I'll start and then you can tell me how practical it is. I think I said at the time that we don't have a huge concern about the abandoned cemeteries coming back to us, perhaps in part because we've already got quite a lot of them. When we talk about having 8 active, that's also active is an interesting term, and Rod can define it a bit better, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're really very active. It means we're not selling plots in them, for instance. It's just that there are some people who could still be buried there. So really, Lakeview is the only one that's what I would class as active. I think the reason I'll look at Rod is the maintenance of those sites isn't a great hardship for us at the minute, and unless Rod tells me otherwise, if we were to take on a big active cemetery like perhaps McLean's, then that will be a different thing, but we'd have to come into that agreement separately anyway.
Through your worship, no, it's not a burden at all. Actually, it is just part of our maintenance program and the grass cutting program. Well, we've already accounted for it. Again, at the end of the day, it is a cemetery and someone's loved one is there. So, I think we do need to take special care of these areas.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. And firstly, and most importantly, Rod, congratulations on your retirement. We're going to miss you. I did have a couple questions for you, though. I'll start with, I know it's not part of the master plan, and I am really pleased with the master plan. Thank you for all the work you've done on it. I'm just curious to know if you know when we may see a bylaw come forward that will address recommendations for mementos, flowers, that sort of thing, dogs off leash, all of that at the cemetery.
Yeah, absolutely. Through your worship, there will be a bylaw coming, I would presume within the next 6 months. You will see the bylaw. The bylaw has been drafted. It needs to be vetted, I believe, through I'd like the clerk's office to see it before we get too far with it. The rules and regulations on the back, as I was calling Schedule A, as in flowers and that kind of stuff. We reviewed a number of different cemeteries in our local area and have tried to kind of incorporate everybody's into one, so it works in Lakeview cemeteries.
I'll look forward to that. And if I may, Your Worship, I'm glad you mentioned comparators, because on page 39, all the comparators are in BC. Why did we choose those particular?
Through your worship again, the consulting firm that we used is based out of BC. They actually have offices in Toronto and another one in Northern Ontario. They did do a comparator to a lot of our local area, the Listowel area, and all down through the southwestern Ontario cemeteries for comparable services and that type of thing. So the main office of the consulting firm is based out of BC, and this consulting firm focuses mainly on cemeteries and landscape design.
Thank you. I had another question. I don't know if you want to come back to me.
Yeah, and I think Jessica had a response to what you were asking previously. So go ahead, Jessica.
Thanks for catching that. Before I forget, through the chair, the bylaw was actually complete as part of this exercise and as a draft. So you will certainly see it in the next, I would say, 4 to 6 months. We were just working through getting it formalized. So you'll see it very shortly. I'm glad you asked.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. If the bylaw is ready, I'm wondering what the chances are of seeing it before summer, just so that we can have those new recommendations in place and people can be clear on what's permitted and not during those months when the cemetery is most often visited and decorated, if I can put it that way.
They're all looking at me because it's me holding it up. Me and my legal nonsense. We'll do as best as we can. Absolutely. It's one that I just need to have a quick look at because I haven't actually paid attention yet to what the consultants have done and just make sure it meets how we do things. And shouldn't take too long, so hopefully.
Councillor Forder.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, my question is with regards to the double depth burials. I'm just curious to know, what were the safety concerns why the municipality discontinued double depth service due to safety concerns, as I'm just reading it here in my notes. Just looking to get some clarification on that, please.
Absolutely, through your worship. So we canceled the double depth burial process. So when you are digging in a cemetery, when you're doing a double depth, you're down approximately 12 feet. And someone has to physically get in the hole to level the bottom off to put the cement vault in. There's no shoring in a cemetery, so you literally dig straight down. And at Lakeview Cemetery, we dig in sand. So any type of collapse from the side is going to be catastrophic for someone in the hole.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in your report, there's mention here of the words green burial. Couple things. Have we had requests for that in the past? And if we have we done it? And there's also this thing about scattering. And I didn't know if that was legal. So we need to address that, obviously.
Yep, through your worship. Yes, we are starting to see some additional requests for different types of burials now. Scattering is probably the most popular that is being requested now, but green burials have also been mentioned. We just wanted to make sure that in the master plan that we've identified it as a future service. So when we begin, it is an additional service that we should be looking at going forward.
Councillor Greenfield, and then we'll come back to the deputy mayor.
Thanks, Your Worship, and thanks, Rod, for this report. I hope it's very complete because it's very long, but no, a lot of information. Just one minor item, just listing the cemeteries that we have in our municipality. I found that interesting. There were some that I had to kind of shake my head at. Where is that, or do we have that? Columberry. No, it says I think it says the existing one we have is something like 85 to 90 spaces still available, but I did a bit of research. There are all kinds of manufacturers of these items. From the time one gets ordered, or I'm assuming we go to tender for these two. From the time we approve a tender until it arrives, is it fairly quick? Because with the move to cremation seeming to be the trend, these 85 spaces could fill up fairly quickly.
Yes, we do. Through your worship. Yes, we do. When we have about 30% left is when we'll usually start the process to begin the next section. Part of when I talk about the infill strategy, there is a lot of different things you could do currently within the operating area to add more columbarium. So it's about 30% is the number though, and it usually takes about 8 to 12 weeks to have one of these units delivered. Sometimes it's the decorating and the horticulture and everything around it, and the garden design and all that kind of stuff. So there is some plans with kind of sketched out where we could go next with some columbarium.
Councillor Yuri.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the report and the executive summary, it both alluded to the fact that this is not just a functional, but it's also a very recreational facility. So, and it made recommendations in numerous places about joining Georgian Trail. In the recommendations that we're doing, this is obviously a first proposal phased in scenario, but I'm just wondering, is there any way to tie in that connectivity? And without, because obviously that's different than kind of building this up. But obviously, I think we get a fair degree of use of people utilizing that that avenue if we did that. Is there a way to do that with this phase as well? Or are we waiting to do that at a later stage?
So through your worship, yes. So the connectivity trail was actually mentioned in Memorial Park Master Plan about connecting it to the cemetery property. It would have to go through a little bit of private property, which I have talked to the owners of the property that they would be willing to allow us to do it. But it would give us connectivity from the top end of Memorial Park through the cemetery directly to the Georgian Trail. So yes, the possibility is there for future development of the connection.
Other questions? Okay.
Your worship, thank you. Rod, you can probably even guess my last question. Swarthmore Drive, what would it take to get that entrance reopened?
So through your worship, when we discussed Swarthmore Drive actually with the consultants, they see it as a walking trail. They actually added additional parking spaces at the end by the gates. So it was more of an access point for bikes and pedestrians walking through the trail. Right now, the Swarthmore Gate, it has been closed off due to extremely large trees that are essentially tipping over. And and the road is actually in not very good shape. We don't want to see, personally, I don't want to see the cemetery used as a through road area. I would like to see it used as, as an area the way it should be used. But there is access provided there through the consulting, and they're actually recommending that it's walking trail and bikes access through there.
You're satisfied. I have a couple of points. And I want to thank you too for this report. Lakeview Cemetery is a tremendous asset to the municipality. I rank it along the lines of Memorial Park in terms of its size and its grandeur and everything. So because of a number of concerns, I rather skimmed the report, and so I didn't find anything about refurbishing the fountains, but I know they're on the radar. And can you tell us anything about a timetable for that?
Yeah, sure, through your worship. We've had the contractor actually up to the cemetery a number of times now. They have actually came up with another design for us that will completely seal these ponds up. These ponds and fountains are very near and dear to a lot of people, and they will be maintained the way they are. They will be, put back together the way they should be and left as they are. Yeah. For timing, I would hope by June that this project could be completed.
That would be awesome. And then I'm just going to raise one more question. And full disclosure, this was a conversation that took place, but there was only one counselor, that was me, and it took place at your retirement party. But I learned that there is actually not just a desire to see swans return to the pond, but an actual willingness on the part of certain wonderful staff to actually make that happen. And I just wonder if that is something that we can plant a seed in that vein anyway.
Through your worship, to your worship, we will be happy to look into it again. There is licensing issues with swans in the cemetery that we would have to look into, but we could further investigate it if it is desire of council to
I
have them up there.
think when we have the personnel with the capacity and the desire or willingness to do it, that it would be the best time of, because I'm not sure whenever again it would happen, and it would be, so I just pass that on. Are we ready to vote on accepting this report? All in favor? And again, thank you, Rod.
One more thing, actually, I just want to thank everybody here. 35 years, it's been great for me, my family, my wife, Carrie, my two daughters, Janelle and Gabrielle. You guys, it's been I've had a great life. I've had a great career here. Never looked at it as a job. It's always been, I'm passionate about what I was doing and could help the community, and it was awesome. So thank you.
Great. Jessica?
I actually wanted to take the opportunity to say thanks to Rod too. Working with him through this project and having the ability to work with him and his team has been truly a pleasure, and I know he'll be greatly missed. But honestly, this project and this report and everything I've learned about cemeteries in the last couple of months, I'm so appreciative of everything that you've done, and you should be really happy with this project. So thanks so much, Rod.
So we're on the home stretch here. A couple of recommendations. Item C, that Committee of the Whole receive report operations 2024-04 annual and summary reports for the Meaford and Leith water systems for information purposes. Need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Forder, seconded by Councillor Bartley. Comments, questions? Councillor Forder.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. This is, quite interesting. Last year was my first year going through these types of reports, so nice to have a year under my belt, and I understand more of what I'm looking at. So my question is with regards to the water loss number of 14.6%. I just want to get a little bit of clarification on that. So for instance, the World Bank suggests that a well-run utility should have a water loss rate of between 15 to 25%, whereas the American Water Works Association suggests that water systems should aim for a water loss rate of 10 to 15% or less. I just wanted to know how those numbers factor in, if I'm even looking at accurate numbers, just looking to learn a little bit more about water loss.
For you, Mr. Mayor, I was actually quite proud that we had a under 15%. The MECP strives for 15 to 20%. So to be under 15 in Meaford is pretty amazing. We've only had probably a few years we could actually say that was under that. So I think overall it's having the instruments and stuff to better keep track of our numbers. Like we've replaced a flow meter at the water plant from an old basically a tube in a pipe that somewhat reads flow, doesn't read anything basically under 50 liters a second, to a mag meter that reads every single liter a second that leaves the plant, which I think has helped.
Any other questions for Emily? Seeing none. Oh, sorry, Councillor Yuri.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question. There was a comment in there about concern about staffing. And so it was both these reports, and it was about just the difficulty of maintaining, and again, this is nothing new to us, I'm presuming. Have we had a fair amount of turnover, and are we having difficulty recruiting new staff to take their place?
Also, we can tag team. Through you, Mayor Penner, yes, I think we have had challenges, both with finding, but also with retaining qualified staff. I think we're not alone, and I feel like there are a lot of reasons why, and I can't speak for people personally. I mean, we share a lot of operators with our neighbors. I find like they go from us to Owen Sound, and geographically I think a lot may come down to what type of work they're doing. We do all types of like water, wastewater. A lot of our neighbors, you're specifically doing one thing, so you're a water operator or a wastewater operator, so that's not always everyone's preference, and maybe you realize you like one or over the other, and you might choose to go to whichever. I mean, pay is always, in full disclosure, always something to consider, especially since everyone is trying to retain people. I feel like that has become a bigger challenge just because people being closer to home, but also potentially making more an hour, I think is always a challenge with retention for sure. Did I miss anything?
Any other questions? All in favor of accepting the report for information? Thank you. Thanks, Emily. Finally, the recommendation that Council Committee of the Whole receive report operations 2024-05, 2023 DWQMS audit results and management review for information purposes. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Forder, seconded by Councillor Bartley. Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Greenfield.
Thanks, Your Worship. Through you to either Jessica or Emily. The audit findings, I think my memory serves me fairly well. Last year we had, I think, 5 opportunities for improvement listed. And this year we have 9 out of, I think, 20. Most of them, I think, refer to maybe documents, records. In my reading, didn't seem to be all that important. But is this something that's, well, I'm just a bit concerned about the growth in numbers that are being suggested to us. Is this anything to worry about, or is this something that's fairly easily reconciled? And
Through you, Mr. Mayor, you should actually be more concerned if we don't have any. The audit is there to help us improve, and element 21 is continual improvement. And the more opportunities for improvement just makes it easier for us to improve without having to go find things. They're being told to us. I think also we've been using the same auditor for a couple years now, and I think it's easier for her now to have a grasp on what we do and her expectations of us.
Question? Ready to vote? All in favor? Now, updates from members appointed to county council and open warrants. Do we have a county council report?
Your worship, actually, county council has not met since we last had a meeting, but we do meet this Thursday, so we'll have a report next time.
Okay. Any other boards or committees had meetings? Councillor Yurick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The February 28th, there was a Gray Sauble Source Protection Authority meeting prior to the regular Gray Sauble Conservation Authority Board meeting. Longtime Municipal Group 2 Representative Mitch Tulin stepped down, and Huron-Kinloss Deputy Mayor Jim Hanna was appointed as his replacement on the Source Protection Committee. At the GSEA meeting, the board approved the 5 following goals for the 2025 to 2035 strategic plan. Effectively monitor and manage the risks of natural hazards, enhance GSEA land management, achieve organizational excellence, improve watershed health, and strengthen environmental education and communication. There was a presentation of the proposed schematic design drawings for the renovation of the GSEA administration building. The board approved the design, which features a new public entrance and internal spaces for public interaction and events. Of particular interest, there was also a presentation by a group called the Beaver Valley Destination Stewardship. Many of the board members were unfamiliar with this organization, which promotes Beaver Valley as a resilient, inclusive, and sustainable destination. They explained that destination stewardship is the process by which local communities, governments, business, and the tourism industry take a multi-stakeholder approach to maintaining the unique natural and cultural assets of a region. It is about protecting the very qualities that make a place first and foremost a wonderful place to live, with the added benefit of being a wonderful place to visit. Accordingly, the BVDS has defined its stewardship area as the Beaver River watershed, which extends the care of the group to a much larger area than the valley alone. This also places the area firmly in the larger context of Georgian Bay and the new movement towards a geopark across the entire Bay region. They spoke about this aspiring UNESCO project, which is under development and would include all of Georgian Bay and its associated watersheds. Finally, the group has made presentations to the municipalities of the town of Blue Mountains and Grey Highlands. And as Beaver Valley also touches a corner of our municipality and is the gateway to our region, I encourage them to pursue making a presentation to our council as well.
Thank you. Any other committees or reports? If not, I need a motion to move out of committee of the whole. Moved by the deputy mayor, seconded by Councillor Forder. All in favor? And are there any notices of motion? No motions to deal with. Adoption of minutes. First of all, a recommendation be it resolved that Council of the Municipality of Meaford hereby adopt the minutes of the council meetings held on February 12, 2024 and February 26, 2024, and the closed meetings held on February 12, 2024 and February 20th, 2024. Also council meeting on, oh, sorry, those, they're already there. So I need a mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor and Councillor Yurig, any errors or omissions? All in favor of accepting these? That is carried. And communications, is there anything on our communications agenda that anyone wishes to raise? Councillor Forder?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, through the correspondence list, I would just like to bring up item number 38. Which is from the city of Clarence Rockland regarding 988, which is the National Suicide and Crisis Hotline. This was launched November last year, so it's still fairly recent. City of Clarence Rockland recognizes that this is a significant and important initiative to ensure critical barriers are removed to those in crisis seeking help. And I would like to echo that resolution from this municipality, please.
So that's a motion. Do we need a seconder for that? Yes, seconder, Councillor Yurig. Any discussion? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And I think we are at the end. Oops, sorry. Yeah.
Item 36 on our correspondence, it comes from Lincoln and the town of Lincoln. It concerns library funding, and I think the first clause of the recommendation tells it all, that provincial funding for public libraries is based on population numbers of 25 years ago, and I think we all know that certainly in our municipality, the population has changed substantially just in the last 5 years, and it's asking for support for basically provincial funding for public libraries, and I was wondering if our council might be willing to support the Lincoln resolution and urge the province for at least to revisit the funding amounts.
So that is a motion. Okay. And is there a seconder? Councillor Forder. Discussion? Did you wish to speak to this?
All I was going to add was that this is obviously about museums too, and I just want to highlight that because I think probably the museum is in even more need of some of that additional funding. The Lincoln letter references them getting $25,000 for their museum annually, which is the maximum out through that grant. We get $8,000, which to be honest is barely enough to justify the paperwork that's involved in doing it. So, you know, yes, I think more funding for these sorts of things would always be good.
Our museum, which is on life supports, really, that's what the sort of strategic plan for the library is life support. And I would say, you know, they just came through yesterday in spades in support of our 150. It's just some tremendous, you know, projects, and really, we couldn't have a 150th celebration without understanding our history a lot better, and they have really, you know, done a bang up job of making that much clearer to everybody. So, we should, we've got a motion and seconded. Can we just go ahead and vote on that? All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. And I believe that, and there's nothing else from correspondence, I believe that's the end of our business. We are going to move into a closed session on a health and safety matter. Be it resolved that Council of the Municipality of Meaford now goes into a closed session at 3:58 p.m. to discuss personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and specifically related to a health and safety matter with the interim CAO, clerk, fire chief, and manager of human resources in attendance.
Before you get a move in a second, I'd like to add the Director of Operations to that as well, please.
Okay, Director of Operations added, and I need a mover and a seconder to do that. Moved by Councillor Forder, seconded by Councillor Greenfield, and I will declare our regular meeting adjourned. Just reporting out on our closed session, we discussed personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, specifically related to a health and safety matter, with the interim CAO, clerk, fire chief, and manager of human resources in attendance, and the assistant clerk. And we discussed nothing but those matters. And just before we sign off tonight, I want to let you know that today is actually the 150th anniversary of the municipality of Meaford being established. And at 7 p.m., those of you who collected bells at the event at the arena yesterday are invited to go outside at 7 p.m. and ring those bells. So we'll have to get out there at 7 o'clock and do our share of noise making. Thank you, everyone. And this meeting is adjourned.